welcome to the Piano Lessons 1, 2, 3 lecture series. I'm Ryan Neubauer, and let's get started with lesson number 1. Alright, so quite simply, we're going to start off with the most essential piece of music, the staff. Without the staff, we wouldn't be able to know what notes to play. So let's look at a few aspects of the staff. So a staff is simply 5 lines in 4 spaces. When we're looking at a staff, we label everything from bottom to top. So from bottom to top, we have 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Same for down here. We also have 4 spaces. Why is this significant? Because it tells us what note to play. Now, for those of you who are musicians, you might have already noticed that there isn't a clef at the beginning, and there usually always is. In this case, we're going to leave clefs for a later lesson. So now, let's talk about bar lines. On a staff, we have something known as a bar line. A bar line simply ends a certain musical phrase or set of notes. Let's say that's 1 bar line, and that's 2 bar lines. These straight singular lines are bar lines. In between is a measure. So if we had 3 bar lines, we now have 1 measure and 2 measures. Now, in this case, let's say we had this. In this case, we have measure 1, we have measure 2, then we have measure 3, and measure 4. We can consider these 2 separate lines of music. However, if we were to extend these bar lines all the way through, we now have something known as a system. Like a computer or gaming system. A system. Now the difference with this is simply this is 1 measure and this is 1 measure. Measure 1 and measure 2. And we can usually tell this because the system contains a square bracket at the end. Now what is a system? Well, let's say we have a lead sheet for a band or an orchestra. Each of these lines might be dictated to a specific instrument. So let's say this is, saxophone and trumpet. These are 2 separate lines, 2 separate instruments, but they're playing at the same time. Now if this was 1 instrument, and we got rid of these bar lines that connected through, these would be, as well as the bracket, we would have 2 lines of music. So now, there's something unique to piano. Now, like we were saying, if we have these bar lines that extend all the way through, we have a system. Now, if we add clefs to this, we can actually create something called a grand staff. Now, a grand staff is unique, maybe not only to piano, but is something we will look at heavily in piano. So if we have a treble clef on the top line, and a bass clef on the bottom line, we also have a bar line at the end, and then a curved bracket, as opposed, there goes some chalk, as opposed to a square bracket. This is the grand staff, and this is what piano music is written as. Now why is that? Well, for when you're playing piano, you have 2 hands, your right and your left. Or, as on screen, right and left. So now, how do we know which to play? Well, this is the treble clef. We'll get into what that is later on. Bass clef. So this is the low end of the piano. This is the high end of the piano. So unless we'd like to be playing cross hand, this is going to be usually the right hand. And this is usually going to be the left hand. Now, what is this staff for? Well, this staff is a graphical representation of notes. Now, let's get into what notes are. A note has 2 things to it. It has not only a pitch or a tone, it also has a rhythmic value. So now in music, we have a number of different types of notes. We'll get into what these are again later on, but we have a whole note, we have a half note, we have a quarter note, and as far as I'll go, an 1/8 note. There goes some more chalk. can tell this is an eighth note because it has this flag on the end. And there's a little hint. The flag always goes to the right, no matter which direction the stem is. Again, we'll talk about that more in a bit. So what does these mean? These different notes, they're not graphed on anything, so they all mean the same thing, except for they have different rhythmic value. You can tell the rhythmic value based on what note it is. So how long you're going to play, essentially, is what this represents. Now where we put them on a staff, or plural staves, or a system, or the grand staff, tells us what note we're actually going to play, what tone, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or their sharps or flats. Now something I want to talk about is this. On any staff, no matter what clef it is, you have lines 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's highlight those. I want to highlight line 3. If we highlight line 3 on both of these, we can look at what the note will do. The reason I draw this is because if you notice, all but one of these 4 notes I have drawn on the board have stems, this little protrusion from the note head. If on any staff, no matter what clef it is, the note is on or above the 3rd line, the stem will go down, and it will be on the left side of the note head. If, however, we're going to go up here for the second one, the note is below the 3rd line, the stem will be on the right of the note head, and it will go up. So that is important just because when we're drawing out a bunch of notes, we don't get distracted by which way the stems are going. It helps to sort of avoid confusion. If you have too many things overlapping, you wouldn't be able to read what's going on, and we'd all be confused. So why would we do that? So aside from that, the 8th note I have drawn there has a flag on it. And like I said before, the flag will always go to the right. Notice I colored it in to change it from a half note to an 8th note. Again, I'll color this in. It's now a quarter note, but if I add a flag going to the right, that is an 8th note. So now that we know what notes are, what a staff is, I want to talk about the one note we're going to start with on the piano. The first note we'll start with. So if we look at this, we have sort of this division between these 2 lines, right? We have the treble clef, we have the bass clef, and we have this space in between. Now, it's not important that you remember this now, but let's start here. We have F, G, A, B, and then this sort of middle ground with a line through it is middle C. We then have D, E, F. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the musical alphabet. A through G. And after that, it starts again. So then A through G, A through G, over and over again. We don't have any extra letters. Music is confusing enough as it is. We don't want to make it more confusing. So if we look at A through G, and we have middle C here, middle C is the note we're going to start with on the piano. Now if these have stems, you could look at middle C as being this. Could look like it's closer to the bass line. It could look like it's closer to the treble line, or it could be equidistant. Either way, if it has one line through it, right through the middle, that's not very well drawn as you can tell, but if it's right through the middle, it is middle C. Now, we're going to get into piano playing posture. That's going to be the second half of this video. So for many of you, the ones who haven't approached a piano before, there's a certain way you should, and a certain way you shouldn't start playing. First of all, when you go to play, you should be sitting down. You should have a bench or a stool or something to sit on while you play. Now, when you sit down, your feet should be flat on the floor, and your back should be straight, no slouching. You want your back straight, shoulders rolled back, and you want your forearms to be level or slightly upward from the ground below you. So if you're below that and your wrist is bent like this, that is not going to be good piano playing posture. You want forearm to be parallel or above. Now, additionally, we want to look at how do I put this nicely? Energy you put into playing. if you have this posture correct, the energy you put into playing is going to be very natural. If, however, you're slouching and your wrists are below the keyboard, such as this, then the energy you're going to put into playing piano is going to be quite abnormal and quite forced. So that's something important. Now I would like you to meet me over at the piano. Here we are over at the piano. For a piano, I'm using a Yamaha keyboard. It is an 88-key keyboard. Now, something to note, a traditional piano will have 88 keys. A full-size keyboard will also have 88 keys. There are keyboards, however, that have 61 or 72 or less keys than 88. Now, it is also important that your keys are weighted. So if they feel somewhat heavy, you're likely having a weighted keyboard, and that is what you want to practice on, something as close to a piano as possible. Now, when we go to a piano, as we talked about, middle C, if you have an 88-key keyboard or full piano, will be this C right next to the logo of the instrument. Now, I want you to look at a pattern. Do you notice anything? Hopefully you notice that you see 2 black keys, followed by 3, followed by 2, followed by 3. Well, that's a sound to please the neighbors. 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. And we use this pattern to identify where we are on the piano. So if we look at any set of 2 black keys, the note directly to the left of the 2 black keys is always C. So this is C, this is C, this is C. And then the alphabet follows as you would expect. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Notice how it repeats. Alternatively, you could go down. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. One note back to itself is something we call an octave. I'm playing 2 C's. I could play this C and this 4th C, so now I have 2 sets of C octaves, or 4 C's altogether. Now, take a look at my hands. When we play piano, we actually number each finger. So your thumbs, we number with 1, your index fingers are 2, your ring fingers are 3, your, middle fingers are 3, ring fingers are 4, and pinkies are 5. Now that is helpful because on certain songs, especially starting out, we will have notes labeled with numbers so you know what finger to use to play that note, and that is helpful for understanding how to play efficiently. So now let's look at something we can play. I want you to place your hand on the keyboard, and I want you to do so with curved fingers. If you notice, my fingers are not flat, rather they are curved nicely. And you have 3 knuckles, 1, 2, and 3 right here. Now these knuckles, all of them should be curved, and when you play a note, you do not want any of these to hyperextend. No, you want to keep that curved, and you want your wrists to be even with the keyboard, not below and not above. You want nice and level. So I want you to place your pinky or 5th finger of your left hand on the C below middle C, and I want you to place your thumb or finger 1 of your right hand on middle C. Now, I want each of your subsequent fingers to fall on each subsequent note, so there should be no skip notes. So we have C, D, E, F, G. So 5 in the left hand is playing C, 4 in the left hand is playing D, 3 E, 2 F, 1 G. Then in the right hand, we have thumb on C, or 1, we have 2 on D, 3 on E, 4 on F, and 5 on G. If you notice, these are mirror images of each other. So thumbs are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this hand position is something I want you to know. This is known as the C octave hand position. So we also have something known as the middle C hand position, and that's where your thumbs share middle C. So I still have each subsequent note with each finger, but middle C is shared by the thumbs. For this exercise, the first thing we are ever going to do on the piano, I know that's very exciting, 5 and 1, we are doing octave C hand position. So what I want you to do is if you know what a metronome is, it would be great to use that. If you don't, we will talk about what a metronome is later. But I want you to play C octaves, D octaves, E octaves, F octaves, G octaves, F octaves, E octaves, D, C. Everything I'm doing in both hands. And we practice with both hands so that both hands get stronger. If you exercise one hand and not the other, then this hand is going to get much better than this one will. And we don't want that. We want evenness. So what I want you to do is just do that over and over. Start off very slow. Pay specific attention to your posture. Your back being straight, your shoulders down, your forearms level, your wrists are level to the keyboard, your feet are flat on the floor, and your fingers are curved. And I want you to do that slowly. And once that feels comfortable, no mistakes, so that's a mistake, why don't we do that again? Once you're comfortable and you haven't made a mistake in a while, pick up the speed. And faster. And I just want you to do that over and over again until you're maintaining the correct posture and you're not making any mistakes. And you shouldn't have any tension. If you feel yourself getting stressed out and your hands are tightening up, or your wrists are tightening up, or your forearms are tightening up, or your back is getting tired, take a break, maybe 5 minutes, and come back and do it again. The goal is to play this exercise and be very relaxed. Now, I want you to meet me back over at the board for the end of this lesson. Alright, welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed Lesson 1 of Piano Lessons 1, 2, 3 lecture series. I'm Ryan Neubauer, and I will continue to do lessons with Piano Lessons 1, 2, 3. However, if you'd like to see more, go to pianolessons123.com or call me directly at 585-532-4175. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again.